Kia ora tātou everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus, a TLA podcast. I'm your host Michael Andrew, and each episode we will be sitting down and talking to an inspiring guest connected to the legal sector, listening to their stories as they share their experience, and in the process explore some of the significant work that is being done behind the scenes that impact the industry and our communities. It is great to be here, and we are very excited to introduce our esteemed guest today, all the way from the Rugby Hall of Fame, the iconic Sir Bryan B.G. Williams. A Knight Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for his services to rugby, Sir Bryan is a former All Black and coach of the Samoan national rugby team, and a former lawyer whose career spanned almost 40 years. Thank you, Sir Bryan, so much for joining us today. It's a real honour, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us in the studio. How's life been treating you?
Well, pretty good, Michael. My wife and I have just had a couple of weeks up in Samoa. I used to coach the national team of Samoa, so they were celebrating 100 years of Samoan rugby, and we went up a couple of weeks ago and came back last week.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you get over there often?
Not often.
Yeah.
My only sister lives in Samoa, and she's lived there for probably 43 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's always good to get up to see her. But in addition to that, we had all these 100-year celebrations.
Yeah, brilliant.
For Samoan rugby.
And how was it? Was it quite a good turnout, I suppose?
Yeah, good turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to engage with lots of the guys that I used to coach, and some of the guys I coached with.
Yeah.
And some of the officials as well. So that was great.
A lot of listeners will be familiar with your legendary rugby career and your exploits on the field, but fewer, I think, will be as familiar with your legal career, which you did for almost 40 years, and which kind of interceded with the tail end of your rugby career. So I'd love to focus on that today. And I think my first question would be, what prompted you to, I guess, get involved with law? Because it seems unusual to have that marriage between rugby and a legal career. I haven't heard of anyone else doing that combination. What was the motivation for you?
Well, I went through Mount Albert Grammar School with a fellow who became my great friend, Bernie Allen. And we met each other pretty much in the first week of school at Mount Albert. And we went right through the same classes together. We played rugby together. He became the captain of the first 15. I was the vice captain. He became the head prefect. I was the deputy head prefect. He became the field events champion in athletics, and I was the sprint champion. So our lives largely paralleled one another. And when it came time to leave school, I said to him, Bern, what are you going to do when you leave school? I was thinking about teaching or something like that. And he said, well, I'm going to do law. And I said, oh, what's involved there? And he sort of explained a bit, and, the laws of the land and regulations and bylaws and police and all the rest of it. So I said, well, I'll give that a go too. So I followed him to law school. The only problem was that in the first month of law school, my rugby club, Ponsonby, had a tour to Japan for about 3 or 4 weeks. And of course, I missed that first month of the academic year. And when I got back to New Zealand, I was absolutely lost, and I was shy. I was too scared to show my ignorance to people. I didn't know where the library was. I didn't know where the lecture rooms were, and I wandered around sort of in a daze for probably some months. And needless to say, at the end of the year, I failed all my exams. And the dean of the law faculty, Jack Northey, he got me into his office at the start of the next year. He said, Mr. Williams, he said, they tell me you're a bit of a rugby player. "Oh, yes, sir, I play a bit of rugby." Well, he said, "Sonny, you're going to have to shape up or ship out." That's what he said to me.
Yeah.
So that was a rude awakening, and I needed to, get serious about study and time management and all the rest of it. And fortunately, I passed all my exams the next year. The year after that was the tour to South Africa. I was 19 years old, and away to South Africa in May of 1970, and of course I was away from May, June, all of July, and got back sometime in August, and missing all that lecture time and doing assignments and essays and whatever. But then fortunately I had a friend who had taken notes for me while I was away, so I embarked on this, really extensive cramming exercise for the next few months, and I managed to pass again.
Okay.
And I'm certain, with the help of, certainly with my friend, but with the help of the lecturers as well, probably showed me a bit of license, because I'd done all right in the rugby. So
yeah,
you got to look after the national interest.
Yeah, so, these days, I suppose, if you're a really promising rugby player, you'll get scouted at school, and you kind of know that you're going to make a career out of it, that it's a viable thing for you actually to make a living and make money if you're really, really good. But I suppose in those days, it wasn't so clear-cut. You would have your rugby, but also have another career on the side, right?
Well, it was definitely not clear-cut, because the game was totally amateur.
Yeah,
you didn't get paid for it, so you had to make sure that you got another career somewhere where you could earn some money.
Yeah,
and so it was, and in retrospect, lots of people say to me now, "Don't you wish you played in the professional era?"
Yeah,
I'm really glad I didn't.
Yeah,
because it meant, getting a career gave you a way more well-rounded life, I think.
Yeah, like you had diversified your options, so that once you finished your rugby career, you have something really tangible to fall back on.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you don't have to start from the beginning.
No, but the law studies obviously coincided with the early part of my rugby career.
Yeah.
So I had to actually sit some exams. We went to the UK in 1972-73 for 4.5 months, and I had to sit 4 exams while I was over in the UK.
Yeah.
So I sat 2 at London University, 1 at Swansea University, and 1 at Cambridge University.
Yeah.
And I take great joy telling my mates that I actually studied at Cambridge University. What I used to do in those days, we used to have a roommate. Because you were rooming with someone, and in order for him to get his good night's sleep, I'd take the mattress off my bed and throw it in the bath.
Yeah.
And I'd study in the bath, and I'd fall asleep, and I'd study in the bath, I'd fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I managed to pass all of those exams as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember getting to the airport during that particular tour, and I was taking, various textbooks and what have you. Well, I was way overweight.
Yeah.
So I had to take all the books out and leave them behind, and hope I could find them, over in the UK.
Did you manage to find them?
Well, I think I did.
Yeah.
And also some statutes. They had some New Zealand statutes over there. So yeah.
So were any of your other teammates also studying at the same time?
Well, Andy Hayden happened to be doing, I think he was doing a Bachelor of Geology or Geography or something like that. And we ended up sitting in the same exam room. He was sitting a different exam to me. And about after an hour, he threw his chair back and jumped up and started waving at me. He said, "I'm out of here."
Yeah.
After an hour. And so he didn't pass his exams, but he ended up probably way more wealthy than I did, but I stuck it out and I managed to pass my exams. So
yeah. Okay, so you started studying in 1968. And then went through to, you graduated in 1974. And then after that, you start practicing law full-time?
Well, I was working for a legal firm. I worked for a firm from 1973 right up till I then set up a partnership, went into partnership with a friend of mine, mate of mine, who's still a great mate of mine, and who still happens to be practicing law.
Yeah, right, okay.
That's a guy called Kevin McDonald.
Yeah.
We ended up setting up a practice together.
Yeah. And you're still playing rugby at the same time, though.
Right through.
Yeah, right through. Yeah. And how are you finding that balance between, I guess, working as a lawyer, the demands of working as a lawyer, and finding time for rugby?
Well, I think the two actually really gelled together, being able to work during the day and then getting outside and running around and doing the training.
Yeah.
They blended well together. So, but by the same token, you still needed to make a living. And in my early days in a law office, the money wasn't very good at all.
Yeah.
Prior to starting work, my wife and we started going out together when we were late teenage, and I used to have to ask her for $1. She became a school teacher, $1 for my lunch to go to the university and buy my lunch. So she feels she's played her part.
Yeah, she financed you.
She financed me.
Yeah, okay. And what type of law were you practicing at the time? Because I know back in those days you were kind of a generalist, right? You tried your hand at most things. You weren't so specialised as it is today.
Yeah. I tended not to enjoy the court work, so I ended up doing largely conveyancing and the commercial work, estates, that sort of thing. And when we set up our practice, I did that, but I also looked after the office side of things, the trust account, making sure that everything was neat and tidy in that respect, and my partner could go off to court, do his court work. And then we went into partnership with another lady who, Julianne Chan, who she used to do the matrimonial work.
Yeah.
So we sort of had a fairly well covered.
Yeah, different world, I imagine, from now in terms of just working in this field. It seems a lot more, I wouldn't say a slower pace, but a lot simpler in terms of...
Well, it was a slower pace in the sense that, you didn't have emails, you got letters. And, you'd sort of pore over the letters for a while, and then you'd dictate a letter and you'd have to get the secretary in and... she'd go away and type it, and you'd have a look at it, and if it was okay, you'd sign it. And so it was a long-winded process to get things done.
Yeah.
So.
And what kind of cases, I guess, were you working on? Was it civil or was it?
Oh no. Well, I as I say, conveyancing, people buying and selling houses, and people buying and selling businesses, largely was what I was doing, and. But also estates, when people passed away, you'd wind up their estate. Yeah, and people making wills and setting up trusts, that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's largely what I did. And as I say, my partner did most of the court work, and he's still actually doing it, believe it or not, at the age of, what is he, 72, 73 now?
Yeah, that's great. That's some staying power.
Yeah.
And so you're playing rugby all throughout, but amateur, so you're playing on weekends, playing games on weekends and practicing throughout the week at night. You get called up to the All Blacks in 1970. So what happened? Do you take a break from your practicing law at the time?
No, well, I wasn't practicing at that stage. I was still studying.
Yeah.
So as I say, I missed out on going to all those lectures. So I needed someone to make sure the notes got taken. And as I say, I then engaged in this cramming exercise when I got back to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Just hoping I could pass the exams.
So what were the demands like of being in the national team at that time? Was it quite rigorous, or did it I mean, I suppose it would be hard now to be an All Black and also study at the same time. You have to space it out over a long period of time if you could do it.
Yeah.
But you were able to just make it work in those days.
Yep. And the expectation of being an All Black was still pretty intense. You know, the All Blacks had this amazing record over many years, as they have done. So losing wasn't really an option.
Yeah.
If you lost, there was a national disaster, national tragedy. So there was lots of pressure, lots of expectation on you. But at the same time, you were having to, pass exams and build a career opportunity for yourself.
Yeah. And you weren't getting paid for it. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
It was just for the honour.
Well, when you say you weren't getting paid, you weren't meant to get paid. Some of the clubs back in those days would rally round, and before you went off on tour, they'd give you a big lot of money. But for those of us who went on lots of tours, that soon fell away. You know, God, we gave them that amount last time. We can't do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So by my last tour, when I was in partnership with my mate Kevin, I had to employ a locum to run my side of the practice, which actually cost me quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just to go on tour, where we used to have to line up at the end of the week and sign for about £10 a week. Sign for it.
Yeah.
And so that's the way it was.
So it was actually costing you to play rugby.
It was. It was costing me to play rugby, and of course, the clamour for the game to go professional obviously grew and grew, and then 1995 is when the game went professional.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. You don't really think about that. It being such a, I guess, grassroots thing back in those days, right? It's all, I guess that the concept of the All Blacks these days is it's such a professional entity,
and exactly.
There's a real career around it for people who.
Well, there's a real amateur ethos back in those days, and even to the extent I played in this game of cricket one day, and. I took a catch out in the outfield, and at the aftermatch they wanted to give me $25 for the best catch of the match. And I couldn't go up and get it. I set my brother up to go and get it, and I couldn't be seen to be accepting money.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what was the publicity like for you and people at university? Were they like, oh, there he is, there's the All Black? Were you well known at that time as being a kind of known quantity? Or
well, it's interesting. Prior to going to South Africa in 1970, I'd come out of nowhere. I was an unknown, and I'd be sitting there in the courtyard having lunch, and Trevor Richards and John Minto and all the anti-apartheid guys, and I'm anti-apartheid too. Don't get me wrong. If they'd have realised who I was, I think they might have given me a hard time. But they didn't even know who I was. I'm sitting there eating my lunch, just listening into what they had to say, and So that was an interesting aside.
Yeah. And did it take long, I guess, for your reputation to build? And
well, that tour to South Africa probably made my reputation. I did pretty well on that tour, and when I came back, going out, taking Leslie, my wife, out. She wasn't my wife at that stage, my girlfriend, to a function, out for dinner, to the movies, just became impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people would come up and autograph, phone, and that game that you played, and poor Leslie would be sitting there, and I'd be too shy, to leave the person.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be seen to be rude and big-headed.
Yeah.
And she'd be sitting in the corner going, like this.
This was supposed to be our date.
Yeah, this is supposed to be our date. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And did you find that the profile affected your legal career? Did clients seek you out because of?
Oh, I think it helped.
Yeah.
It definitely would have helped.
In court, did any judges kind of make mention of it?
Oh, well, there was one time, as I say, I didn't really do court work, but I went to court one day to ask for an adjournment for my partner. He was tied up in another court. And she said, Mr. Williams, she said, no, I'm not going to give you an adjournment. She said, you're actually going to conduct the case. Oh, man, but I've got some clients back in the office I've got to go and see. No, she said, you will conduct the case. So I'm then stuck in court defending some poor guy who I hadn't been too briefed on the case. Well, we end up winning.
Yeah.
So and my
you just
partner,
winged it.
Yeah. My partner said, well, see how easy it is, BG? No, I said, you do that. I'll go back to the office, please.
Yeah. Oh, great. And so when your in the tail end of your rugby career, and you started kind of moving to law, did you find it was enough for you to, I guess, fill the gap? Because obviously rugby is your passion, and law is your occupation, your vocation. What was that like moving away from rugby and into law? As an exclusive.
Well, funny you mention, but when I retired from rugby, I remember this particular night. I was quite emotional, and I went home to Leslie. I said, "Oh dear, I've pulled the pin. I've retired, and you're going to see a lot more of me." And, well, about 3 weeks later, I was helping my mate out coach the Ponsonby Premier team. And then I embarked on this long coaching career, about another 20 odd years. So poor Leslie had to put up with that as well.
Yeah.
So
you couldn't quite sever all ties yet.
Couldn't sever all ties, and but it's been a passion of mine all the way through, playing, coaching, administering. And as a result of things like that, people take notice. Yeah.
Was there an example you were following in terms of another lawyer / rugby player who was successfully combining the two together, or were you kind of just following your nose in this?
Well, as I say, it happened almost by chance when my dear mate, who's still a great mate of mine, said that he's going to do law. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Just he said, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing law. Oh, okay, I'll do law.
Yeah,
and that was it. No family background in legal matters whatsoever. But it seemed like a good idea until I started the study part of it. Oh, geez, this is a bit hard.
You realised that there's a lot more to it. Yeah.
But in the final analysis, I'm really glad I did law because it's a really good degree to have under your belt.
Oh, yeah.
Not only if you're practicing law, but in terms of business and investing and all sorts of things.
Yeah. Gives you just general tools.
Yeah, general tools. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, these days, law, especially for young lawyers, juniors, has a reputation as being really demanding, and working all-nighters at times, lawyer burnout is a common term we hear thrown around. Was it like that in those days, or was there a bit more of a work-life balance allowing you to pursue other things?
I think for some people it was like that. They just overworked themselves to the point where, nervous breakdowns and what have you. But Like in anything in life, if you prioritise certain things in your life, like family and exercise and sports and nutrition and hydration and whatever, you can get the balance right. And that's the lesson that I try and pass on to, whenever I'm speaking to young people. Happened to be speaking to a couple of classes at Mount Albert Grammar School yesterday about that very point.
Yeah.
Work and life balance, making sure that you get the balance right. The word balance has always been a particularly strong ethos mantra of mine in my life.
Yeah. I suppose, you can work as hard as you want, especially if it's your own practice or you're in a partnership. You can work as hard as you want to if you want to dedicate your life fully towards it, or if you want to incorporate other things like you did, you can. It's just a matter of making that choice and making it work for you.
That's right. Yeah.
And what about when you graduated your studies? It sounds like you just went straight into it. You got that junior role in 1973, but it sounds like you moved up quite fast, in a partnership not far along the...
Yeah, I've got to say that the firm who employed me were really good to me. A guy called Owen Wright, and then it became Wright Wiseman and Co. And on at least one of those tours, they paid half my salary while I was away. So in that sense, that was really, really good.
Yeah.
Thing about the law is you're constantly learning about it, and you frequently don't actually know what the particular law is. You have to know where to find the authority for it in the statute or whatever. So just learning the process, I think, was a key thing. If you didn't know, you went and found out.
Yeah.
And
So you went to South Africa, obviously, and you were exposed to the apartheid issue that was going on, and that was a real controversial issue in New Zealand as well, with a lot of debate and a division, different people, believing different things. What was that like for you in your capacity as a lawyer? Were you seeing any kind of division within the sector, or did it, in terms of what people believed?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And as I say, right from that first tour, if people had realised there was me sitting in the courtyard, I might have been subjected to quite a bit of treatment, I suppose. But the fact was that I found apartheid abhorrent as well, for obvious reasons. I was one of the first players with dark skin, dark blood, to be allowed to tour to South Africa in 1970. So that was groundbreaking stuff. And over time, I gradually saw apartheid being eroded in South Africa. For example, in 1970, when we went over there, the only black and coloured people that you'd see in a hotel were those serving. Whereas in 1976, they'd designated some hotels as international hotels. So black and coloured people were able to stay there if they could afford to stay there. So just little things like that. You realise that things could change.
Yeah.
And in that 81 tour to New Zealand, the Springbok tour, which caused so much disharmony and upheaval, was probably the turning point. South Africans realised then that New Zealanders weren't going to put up with it. No way.
Yeah.
And then what followed throughout the 80s, Mandela released from prison, and then in the early 90s became president of South Africa.
Yeah.
When I was there in 1970, and 76 for that matter, he was still on Robben Island.
Yeah.
27 years in prison. Yeah, so to see that sort of thing happen, and dare I say it, some people will say that we shouldn't have gone to South Africa in 1970, but I am particularly pleased that I did.
Yeah.
I was a law student. I'd like to think I could, use my noggin a bit, and I wanted to go and see for myself, but I was terrified. When the plane touched down in Johannesburg, suddenly it all hit me. 19 years old, you've got dark complexion, and you're going into apartheid South Africa. Not only that, you're also you're a new All Black. You haven't proven yourself, and you're alongside all these living legends like Colin Meads and Brian Lahore and people like that. You're going to have to prove yourself there too. So when the plane touched down, I virtually had a panic attack. I didn't want to get off. I was sort of holding on to the seat, and my mate said, "Come on, you got to go." I don't want to. But I got off, and the rest sort of followed.
And you smashed it.
Well,
you proved yourself.
Well, I did.
Yeah, you must do really well under pressure.
I like to think I try and stay as cool as possible. Yeah. And I had a really supportive family. I played alongside my two brothers at Ponsonby, and that was nice. As I say, my wife Leslie's been there for my whole journey, so we've got a special bond, and all the rest of my relations, big family who followed intently my progress and what have you. So it's been a great journey. One of the other things for me was the music, and I learned how to play the guitar quite early in the piece, and I used to take my guitar on tour. And back in those days, you had to make your own fun after games. Mm. So we get the guitar out and sing a few songs before dinner and have a few beers, and then after dinner, back on the guitar, and sometimes we'd go till 2 or 3 in the morning. And but I always joke about how playing the guitar prolonged my rugby career by about 3 years, I reckon. The rugby was on the wane, but we've got to have Bee Gees. We need a guitar player.
That's how you got the name, right?
Well, it's sort of how I got the name. Yeah, after the Bee Gees. Yeah. And
you still play?
Yeah.
You still play music?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, we're quite a musical family, actually.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And what was, you continued practicing after you retiring from rugby for another 30-odd years.
Yeah.
What was the most enjoyable or fulfilling parts of it for you? Was there any moments that stand out?
Oh, I think just having satisfied clients. I think if you did a good job and they expressed that to you, that was the most satisfying thing. Mm. Yeah. So so after the initial partnership, we actually disbanded. In fact, we sold our practice at 1987. So we started at 78, almost 10 years, and then I set up a practice at home.
And what was the effect on your law practice from the 87 crash? Did it create more business for you, or did it at times become quite tough?
In 87 was the time when we actually sold our practice downtown, and then I set up a practice just operating from home. So it was just a one-man band, really, and I probably practiced for another, 20-odd years doing that. And then I coached with Samoan right through the 1990s, and that was a pretty successful run too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the the odd mishap, like team beat us 60-0 at one stage in Suva, which was perhaps the lowest ebb of my whole coaching career. If a big hole had opened up, I'd have willingly jumped into it.
Yeah.
But you have those sort of setbacks, then you got to learn from it and pick yourself up and go again.
Yeah, you got to take the ups with the downs.
Yeah,
right?
you do. But afterwards, the boys joined together for a prayer and then singing and dancing and hugging, and it's special. In '95, when the game was going professional, and I was at the World Cup in South Africa with the Samoan team, and all these meetings, clandestine meetings, were taking place behind closed doors, and used to wonder why we weren't being invited. We'd made the last two quarterfinals, 91 and 95, and so you're ranked in the top 8 teams in the world, and the game's going professional, and then suddenly they come out and announce this is a new order of things, but Pacific Islands, no, you're not included. And I was so aggrieved and distraught about it, and couldn't believe it had happened, really. It's only in 2021 that we finally get a Super Rugby team. This is going back to '95. And in the meantime, your players have to go offshore to earn their living. And to be fair, some of them have done really well. Pat Lamb's one of the top coaches in the UK now, and Inga Tugamala, Apollo Perolini, quite a number of our boys who played in '95 went to the UK. Ferretti Tuilangi, the Tuilangi boys, one of them, Manu, plays for England now. So he ended up, after one of these tours, staying in the UK, and has made a life for himself over there, and he's gradually brought his brothers over to England, and they've all had outstanding careers, made good money, made lots of money from their careers in the UK. So that was a good byproduct of it, but it just meant that our players were having to go offshore to earn their living. So to finally have 2 teams now, the Fijian Drua, but also the Moana Pacifica in this part of the world, it gives our players an opportunity to play professional rugby in this part of the world. And then feed into their national teams. Feed into Samoa, Tonga, Fiji.
Yeah, I went to school with the PC boys.
Oh, yeah.
And so they obviously grew up here, but ended up playing for Samoa. Yeah, which is great.
I was with Tusi just last week, actually.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I went to school with Ken. He was my age.
Okay.
So, yeah. Good players.
Yeah, Tusi's one of the coaches of the Manu Samoa now.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, over the years, you're seeing that kind of at reverse rather than going offshore. New Zealand players going to play with Samoa. Yeah. Well, New Zealand-based players, I suppose, which is great. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say about our era, my 2 sons both played professional rugby, and I'm certain that I had way more fun than they did. Yeah, and I don't say that lightly. They'd agree with that, because the professional game, has certain demands that they have to meet on a day-to-day basis. Whereas back in our day, it was play the game, have a few beers, have a few more beers.
Play some music. Do some study.
Do some study if you can fit it in. Yeah, but back in those days on these tours, we used to play twice a week, whereas the players now, they only play once a week. Yeah, so, a bit more rest, but lots of time to kill and too much time to think, I think. If you're injured or if you're not getting selected, that's when these mental health issues, I think, And also after they finish their careers, because they haven't got anything to go to.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have had legal aid in those days.
They did have legal aid, early stages of it.
Oh, okay, they did. Yeah. So there was that avenue.
So my partner used to do a bit of legal aid. Yeah. Back in those days.
Yeah. And so, was there anyone of interest that we might know who you studied with?
Just in terms of some of the people I was at law school with. One of my tutors was David Longy, who was former Prime Minister. Winston Peters was one of my great mates. We used to study together and party together and have a lot of fun. Sian Elias, who the Chief Justice, she was at law school back in those days. Guy called Fongi Retzlaff, Misa Retzlaff. He became the Deputy Prime Minister of Samoa. So one of the others was what's the name? Anand Satyanand. He became the Governor General of New Zealand.
Wow.
And believe it or not, his father actually delivered me when I was born. His father was a doctor up in Ponsonby Road. So
wow.
he delivered me and my brothers. And so I was at a function with Anand not too long ago. And he said to me, we both used to go to a small primary school, Richmond Road School, just in Richmond Road.
Yep.
And he said, "Oh, BG," he said, "you know, you and I aren't Richmond Road School's most famous ex-pupils." Oh. Well, I said, I didn't think I was, to be fair, Anand, but I thought you might be. He said, "No." He said, "Do you want to know who Richmond Road School's most famous ex-pupil was? The Rock." Dwayne Johnson actually went to Richmond Road School for several months back in the day. So
really?
He was, and I've actually seen an interview with The Rock, owning up to it. He said, "Oh yeah, when I lived in New Zealand, I went to Richmond Road School."
I didn't know that. How long was he in New Zealand for?
Oh, it wasn't overly long.
Wow.
Some months, I gather, but he had at least two or 3 months at Richmond Road School. So, back in our day, we'd go on these long tours, so you're able to do lots and lots of sightseeing, and you could go, you'd play 2 games a week. So you might arrive on a Thursday, play Saturday, pack up Sunday, play again Tuesday or Wednesday the following week, have to pack up after each game and travel, and then go somewhere else. So it was constantly changing, and different sites to see.
Whereas these days you're probably stuck in the hotel and practice yard.
But they largely only play test matches now.
Yeah.
So you go to a test match venue, you're really serious about it for the week. Play the game, and then you're out again on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't get to see anything. And they're not allowed to enjoy themselves like we once did. So
Thanks again, Sir Bryan.
Cheers,
really
Michael.
appreciate it. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. Subscribe to InFocus, a TLA podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to connect with the Law Association, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, X or Instagram, or visit our website, theLawAssociation.nz. Mā te wā.